Well, let me apologize for the late start. I'm not going to blame anybody. I'll blame myself for the late start. But before I even welcome the candidate, I want to welcome Judge President Leo for this session. I also want to welcome, on behalf representing the Premier, the MEC for Culture, Arts and Traditional Affairs from the Northwest Province, MEC Untlamezi Mochware. Welcome. And good afternoon, Judge Hendricks.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice and Commissioners.
It'll take nothing from you if you were to admit that you are nervous if you are. Are you relaxed or nervous?
I'm a bit nervous,
All
yes,
right.
Chief
Okay.
Justice.
All right. You were here during the last sitting for the same position.
That is correct, Chief Justice.
Before I put any preliminary questions to you, is there anything you want? Well, let me rather put it this way. In your own words again, tell us why you believe you're the right person for the position. Very briefly.
Yes, thank you, Chief Justice. First of all, I have 14 years of experience as a judge. I have acted on 3 occasions, 2 of which were as Judge President and 1 as Acting Deputy Judge President. I have the necessary abilities and leadership skills to be the Deputy Judge President of the Northwest Province.
Yes. Well, maybe I shouldn't ask anything while you're still nervous. Let me rather say, JP, any question?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, JP.
As Chief Justice, I don't have questions.
Very well. MEC?
Chief Justice, I only have one question, because fortunately I was a member of the commission during the previous interview. But the only question that I have is, how will you ensure that lawyers from the previously disadvantaged communities participate actively in the Provincial Efficiency and Enhancement Committee? Thank you, Chief Justice.
There is in the Provincial Efficiency Enhancement Committee representation by lawyers, and I think the lawyers amongst themselves decide who represent the lawyers in the PEEC. But perhaps it can be extended to the lawyers, that those who are interested, and especially those from previously disadvantaged communities, can have a seat on the PEEC in order to be represented.
MEC?
I am hopeful that should you be the successful candidate, you will ensure that really it happens. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, MEC.
Yes,
Commissioner
MEC.
Nyambi?
Thank you, CJ. Morning.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Thank you. I have only one question.
Yes.
Maybe if you can assist us to understand what has changed then out of what happened in the previous interview. You'll remember what happened, you're not appointed, and now developments that will make you to be more appointable now than then.
Chief Justice, I don't know the exact reason why no appointment was made. And I don't know how to answer this question unless I'm told the reason why, and then I can respond there too.
Yes. Commissioner Nyambi, do you want to assist him?
Yes. No, I'm talking about yourself.
Oh.
Yes. I was referring to you. I thought maybe you were going to market yourself to tell us developments that happened then and now. And you remember, you're not the only one. You had your colleague from the same bench, and there were issues that were raised then.
Yes. After the interview in April, I was fortunate enough to be appointed as acting Deputy Judge President. In that role, I assisted the Judge President in the effective and efficient enhancement and running of the judiciary. So, yes, I believe there is some strides made.
Thanks, CJ.
Thank you. I don't know if I saw Commissioner Malema's hand up. Yes, Commissioner Malema.
Thank you very much. My colleague here, Judge, is trying to ask if there's any, apart from the acting,
Yes.
is there any personal development that you might have accumulated in between now and the previous interaction we had with you?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I believe that being given another chance to act as Deputy Judge President, I did develop more skills and assisted more in the running of the division.
What is your relationship with the junior staff at the court?
I have a very good professional, collegial relationship with all colleagues on the bench in the Northwest Division.
Are you not bullying junior staff at the court?
No, not at all, Commissioner.
Because I got a complaint from the staff members who say they are at level 5 and you've got no regard for them. You look
Well-
down on them, you bully them, you speak to them with disrespect.
Well, that wasn't brought to my attention, first of all, and I have no knowledge about that, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malema. Judge President Lope.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Judge Hendricks, the high courts in particular have a problem of backlog. We have so many cases in the pipeline that deserve to be heard. That is the first problem. Secondly, the resources are very limited, as you know. Now, as someone who's aspiring to become a Deputy Judge President, have you thought about ways of managing your role in such a way that the judges in your division are going to work smart and in a manner which is cost-effective as well? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, there is case flow management, and there is also judicial case management of the matters that are on the roll in order to expedite the efficient and expeditious finalization of matters. I personally think that if case management is appropriately implemented by not only some judges, but all the judges in a particular division, it will enhance the service delivery and it will deal with the backlogs.
I follow that up,
Yes,
Chief Justice. Have you thought about mediation, court-based mediation, as well as pre-trials in all matters, be it criminal or civil matters? Don't you think that will go some way? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Indeed, in our division, there are pre-trials held in both civil as well as in criminal matters. And it helps a lot to get matters trial ready and so that it can be finalized as soon as possible. Court-based mediation, Commissioner, it's implemented in the lower courts and it can be extended to the High Court as well.
Thank you, Judge President. Commissioner Singh.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
You know, many people out there in the public know that we sit here during these interviews, and I received an email now, and I just want to put it to you so you can comment on this. It refers to a Facebook publication, and it says, Northwest High Court thwarting the repeated and desperate attempts of community leaders to hold leaders accountable. Goes on, Chief Justice, to say, the Northwest High Court is described by Anika Klaasen and Boitumelo Matlala in a recent publication as thwarting, quote, as thwarting the repeated and desperate attempts of community leaders to try and preserve their mineral assets and land base, close quote, and to hold traditional leaders and government to account. One of the judges, Ronald Hendricks, who has been in the thick of these cases, will again be interviewed for a leadership position on the bench for the Northwest High Court. Is there anything that you would like to tell us about this particular matter?
Thank you, Commissioner. That matter served before me some years ago. I delivered a judgment. It was taken on appeal to the Constitutional Court. It was overturned. There was a majority judgment, and there's also a minority dissenting. I beg to differ from the authors. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Let me just understand, so you were overruled?
I was overruled, yes.
Okay.
Chief Justice.
Minister?
Thank you, Chief Justice, Justice Hendricks. Can you tell us your view about gender representativity on the bench? What is your opinion on that matter?
Thank you, Commissioner. The ideal would be a 50-50% representation. It differs, however, from division to division. In our division, we are a complement of 6 judges, 4 of which are women and 4 are male. 4 are women, correction, and 2 are male.
I see. But I'm just talking about gender representativity within the judiciary generally. Is there any particular views that you have on the concept of gender representativity?
As I stated, the ideal would be an equal representation. Unfortunately, it is not yet. We are not yet there. So we need to empower women in order to take up positions on the bench.
There has been perceptions that an element of mediocrity has in certain instances crept over the past 20 years in the selection by the JSC of members of the judiciary, with the consequence that that affected the overall performance of the court or the courts. Do you have any view about that?
Personally, I'm not aware of such mediocrity, and it may well be a perception, but whether it is indeed true and correct, I have my doubts about it, Commissioner.
Do you have any particular reason why you have your doubts?
I know that there are very able and competent women that are appointed to the bench, and also persons like myself who were previously disadvantaged and who is delivering justice to the people.
And just finally from my side, Chief Justice, the concept of separation of powers, though not explicit in the Constitution, current Constitution as I read it, features in the constitutional principles of the interim Constitution that played a role in the finalization of the current Constitution, as you should be aware. Do you believe that the judiciary upholds this principle? Do you believe that you yourself uphold this principle in your judgments? Do you believe in the principle?
Yes, Commissioner, I firmly believe in the separation of powers, yes, and I do uphold it. I don't believe that there is, to a great extent, overreaching. And I believe that the judiciary is independent, and as the third arm of government has a vital important role to play in our democratic society.
You use the word to a great extent. Do you want to explain the qualification?
There may be some instances where a lower court may deliver judgment and which is on appeal overturned and the record is set straight.
That's the question I actually didn't think that's the answer I didn't think you'd give, but thank you very much. We seem to be of the same mind. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner Didiza?
Thank you very much, CJ. Good morning, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you, Commissioner?
Fine. There are two questions for me, Chief Justice.
Yes.
One of them is to ask your own contribution, if you can share with us, to the transformation of the judiciary. I know the issue of gender is always come uppermost, but also the issue of race in our judicial system. It's another. If you can share your own contribution, if any, to that transformation. The second one relates to the objection that has been raised. I'm not sure whether you've got it in your files, by Gaone Jexiamang Monshiwa. If you can take us into confidence, because there are several issues that he raised which supports why he's objecting to your appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, as far as transformation is concerned, my contribution, for the past 14 years that I'm on the bench, I was actively involved in mentoring acting judges, some of which were women, and most of which are from previously disadvantaged communities. And some of the acting judges have been permanently appointed. As far as the objection is concerned, I did respond to it. I don't know whether it was received in writing. I don't know whether there is anything in particular that Commissioner wants me to respond to.
Well, I think the Commissioner just wants you to articulate it here.
Thank you, Chief Justice. This issue was raised during the previous interview, and I was even asked about it, and I did respond to it. It seems to me that Mr. Monshiwa was unhappy about the decision that I made. Mr. Monshiwa also applied for leave to appeal. He even, unsuccessfully though, and he petitioned not only the Supreme Court of Appeal, but also the Constitutional Court, unsuccessfully so. So, yeah, there are allegations made in the objection. I dealt with it in my response, some of which are unfounded and unsubstantiated.
Commissioner Didiza?
Thank you, CJ. I've noted the response, very cryptic, and yeah, maybe there are reasons why you are very brief with your answers, because I thought, given that, you know, after you responded in April on some of those allegations, the objector keeps on raising some of those matters, particularly with the issue of the appeal, where he argues that whether fact or fiction, that it could have been that the transcripts were not provided for in the higher court, which would have assisted the court to have the fuller appreciation of the matters at hand. So I'm just saying that I'm not sure whether you just want us to go by what you have responded written, or you would want to just take us into confidence on some of those issues on why you think this matter keeps on persisting beyond just to say the person may not be happy.
Let me help to have an answer come. What, in your experience, ought the Supreme Court of Appeal or the Constitutional Court to have done in circumstances where the transcript is not attached and it is yet central to the proper determination of the issues?
The Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court would have asked for a transcript. Conspicuously, this transcript is not attached. As to why it is not attached, I don't know. I don't deal with the transcripts, Commissioner, and I really can't speculate why it is not provided. The objector raised in his objection the possibility that Mr. Nell, whoever Mr. Nell is of the transcription services, has something to do with the transcription not coming to light. However, I have nothing to do with that.
Whose responsibility is it in the ordinary course to ensure that the transcript reaches a court of appeal?
That is the responsibility of the applicant or his legal representative.
What role should the judge play in ensuring that a court of appeal has a transcript, if any?
Unless the judge is asked for a transcript, but it's beyond the judge to arrange for a transcript. It remains the responsibility of the applicant or his legal representative to ensure that the transcript is placed before the court of appeal.
Is there a follow-up, Minister? Yes.
No, I may not have the facts, and pardon me, because some of this correspondence, when in small print, is not accessible to me. But following on the discussion, it appears that an officer of court whose responsibility it was to generate and make available a transcript may have failed to do so, if that is what was at issue and what the judge is trying to communicate here. Now, if that were so, isn't it so that all officers of court in a court that a judge presides over are accountable to that judge, and that that judge can actually rein them in if they fail in their professional or statutory duties as the captain of that ship, so to speak? And if that is so, wasn't the judge here ultimately bearing the responsibility of ensuring that whether it's the registrar or any other person in that court performs their job, and if they fail, they're held accountable? There's something I'm just missing there in the responses.
Yeah. Commissioner, it may well be that if asked, then the judge can intervene, but it's not a primary function of the judge to do so. But called upon, the judge may. And in this instance, if I was asked to make available my notes, I would have. It is clear from the reasons for judgment, as well as the court order, that the gist of the complaint by the objector was that he wasn't afforded an audience, which indeed is not true.
Well, let me make sure I understand. Did the objector approach you or not approach you to intervene so as to ensure that he has the record or the transcript?
I was not approached by the objector, Chief Justice, to intervene.
Did anybody approach you or
No.
make you aware that there is this problem so that so far as possible you could assist?
Not at all, Chief Justice. The first time that I was made aware of this was during the April interview when the objector also raised an objection.
Professor Ntlama?
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, Judge Hendricks.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
It's just a follow-up on the objection as well.
Yes.
Mr. Montour made a closing statement here that the Northwest High Court is a hive of criminal activity. So the perception is not easy to undo. So if we are getting this opportunity, how would you deal with the perceptions of this nature if the High Court is labeled as a hive of criminal activity? And secondly, if we are also given this opportunity to be the second in command, how would you facilitate the appointment of acting judges in your division?
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, that allegation is devoid of any truth. That the High Court in Northwest is the hive of criminal activity. That is one of the unfortunate, unsubstantiated comments by the objector. The objector doesn't only refer to one person, he refers to a whole list of persons. And it includes colleagues, practitioners, not even on the bench, acting judges, And it is really unfortunate that these comments are made. As the second in command, if I understand the question correct, what I would do to ensure that acting judges are called to come and act, if that is the question. Persons can be identified, invited, there can be advertisements placed for interested persons to make themselves available in order to act as judges and be mentored and prepared to be permanently appointed.
Professor Mtshekga?
Understood you correctly to be putting emphasis on 50-50 representation.
Yes.
And if so, do you think that quality of justice can be put at the same level with the representativity, regardless of whether or not the 50 men that you want to put alongside 50 women would not perform at the same level as the 50 women?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, the ideal would be equal representation. And I have no doubt that there are competent women. They have proved themselves over a period of time since the dawn of our democracy. So yes, the ideal is and will always be that there is competent women appointed to key positions in the judiciary.
No, what I mean is if there are 50 women that are good, that would deliver quality justice, are you going to look for 50 men so that you have 50-50, or would you appoint 50 women and 40 men because women can deliver better and quality justice?
Yeah, it all depends on the persons, but I would still go for the 50-50, Commissioner.
Are you complaining about the 75-25 representation in the Northwest Bench because women are in the majority? Do you want the women to drop so that men can rise or what?
Not at all, Chief Justice. That is not what I'm saying.
Okay. Commissioner Nkosi Thomas?
Thank you, Chief Justice. And good day to you, Judge Hendricks.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Judge Hendricks, you appeared before us in April.
Yes.
And during your interview, and of course the interview of a colleague of yours, I was left with a distinct impression that matters in your division, insofar as team building and collegiality as among judges required some work. Was I correct in my impression?
No, not entirely correct, Commissioner.
To what extent am I not correct?
I believe, and it is my experience, that there is indeed collegiality amongst us. There was, however, some incidents, but it was addressed. The Chief Justice paid a visit, and there was a meeting between the Chief Justice, the Judge President, and one of my colleagues. I don't know what the outcome of that meeting was, but there are no tensions at present.
Now, applying as you do for one of the senior positions available in that division, how, going forward, would you prevent such a tension from occurring as amongst colleagues on the bench?
First of all, I believe that as colleagues, we need to cooperate with one another and work together in a team. Secondly, if there is any misunderstanding between colleagues, it needs to be addressed, and the most efficient way is to hold a meeting and to discuss any impasses that may occur.
Thank you, Judge Hendricks, and thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nkosi Thomas. Commissioner Norman?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Hendricks.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Thank you. You now have been told that someone has complained about you bullying, and you have denied that. What are the plans that you have now? Now that you know there is this complaint about you, what do you plan to do about it?
It all depends if the person, I think that you are referring to the objector, Commissioner.
No. Commissioner Malema raised something with you, that someone was complaining that you bully junior staff. My question relates to that.
Oh.
Yes. Now, I want to know from you, now that you've been told that this is a complaint. It may not have come to the commission formally, but it has been placed before you now. How do you plan to deal with it?
Perhaps by having a meeting and to address whatever concerns junior staff may have. I don't have any details of the complaint and who is complaining. If that person has approached me, I would have addressed the concern. Going forward, perhaps if one of the junior staff or any one of the junior staff has a complaint, to approach me and to discuss it.
No, but sorry, as a follow-up, Chief Justice, sure. You are in a position of power. You are going to be second in command. We all know that because of the position that you hold, or that you will hold if you are appointed, no junior staff will simply come and ask you about matters of bullyism. But what I want to understand from you is, how are you going to protect junior staff members and make it easy for them when they have complaints either against you or any other member of the bench so that, those issues can be dealt with and you can yourself be accessible to them?
The best thing is to have an open door policy where even junior staff can approach. I am approachable. Approach and raise any concern. I'm totally taken by surprise about this complaint of bullying. I'm not even aware of it. So that is why I don't even know how properly to address it. Had it been followed, had that complaint followed the correct channels, perhaps I would have had an opportunity to deal with it.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Norman. JP Shopper?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Just one more question, Judge Hendricks. What are your views, if any, on the use of the official languages in the courts? Do you come from the school of thought which says all 11 official languages must be used, developed, just like English and Afrikaans were before 1994? Or do you subscribe to the school of thought that says we have to use one language of record? Thank you.
We have 11 official languages equal in status. There is, however, one language of record, and that is English. However, there is nothing preventing the development of the other indigenous languages also to be used in court, although the language of record may well be a uniform one in the form of English.
Thank you. Now, Commissioner Malema?
What is a formal way of complaining about the judge's conduct? By ordinary people, like a cleaner, is not a law body, but he's got the right to express himself. And this person goes through a public representative who sits in this body to say, amongst other things, these are the issues we're experiencing with this judge. And then you'll come here and say they didn't follow any formal procedure. What is that?
First of all, to raise the issue with the person concerned, maybe in writing, there is structures that can be followed. There's even, like in the case of employees,
is there anything wrong with a cleaner that says to a public representative, this is what we're experiencing at our workplace? Is there anything wrong with that?
There is nothing wrong with it, except that I maintain that there is a procedure to follow. The person concerned could have raised it with, if such a person belongs to any organization, take it through the organization, or write a letter to the judge president about the judge.
Here is a cleaner who complains about a judge. And this cleaner will not even know that there's a procedure to write to a chief justice. Come on, man. And then he comes across a public representative, a person he has elected to represent him or her in parliament, and says, these are our working conditions. Is there anything wrong with that?
Then there's certainly nothing wrong with it, Commissioner.
Is there a difference between gender equality and feminism?
Yes, Commissioner.
What is the difference?
Gender equality has to do with the equal treatment of the persons from different genders. Feminism has to do with more inclined to be on the side of women.
So if there are 50 women, qualified 50 women, very good, and we are looking for 50 judges, and we employ all 50 women, and there is no male there. Is there a problem?
It will definitely not be equal representation.
Will it be a problem?
It won't be equal representation, and that is the problem, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Well, if you have the opportunity, given our background, and bearing in mind that certain courts have had only men for years, is it inappropriate to have a court that comprises women only?
No, Chief Justice.
Let me make it clear. Can we say as the Commission, let us not appoint any more women to make sure that men come in?
No, it won't be the right thing to do.
Yes. Now, about something else.
Not Chief Justice, no. Through
Are you asking to
on
follow
the
up?
same? Yes.
Okay.
So, Judge, do we agree that your judgment on my question about 50 women was wrong?
I beg your pardon, Commissioner?
Do we agree that your judgment on my 50 women appointed only, your response to that question was wrong?
If indeed there will be, at the end of the day, equal representation, the 50 women can be appointed.
No. That was not his question. Please understand the question.
Yes.
Don't confuse yourself. Commissioner Malema wants to know, if we have in a court where 12 judges are required, you have women only say who apply. Say Mpumalanga High Court. Women make themselves available, all competent. Are you now going to say, no, we're going to appoint 6 so that the other 6 can be filled by men?
Certainly not, Chief Justice. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. The 50-50 representation does not relate only to a specific court. It is across the board, a broad spectrum. So if there are more women in one division, doesn't mean that, there's an equality.
What about in the country? If there are more women in the country, all over the nation, will it be wrong?
No,
we
it
have
won't.
60% judges as women and 40% as men.
No, it won't be wrong, Chief Justice.
All right. What complaints mechanisms are you aware of? What is it that the junior staff at Lina can do to register a complaint against a judge, apart from approaching the judge president or another judge? Do you know?
There is a hierarchy.
That's Afrikaans now, hierarchy.
Yeah.
I know you are Afrikaans sprekend.
Yes.
No, apart from the court setting, who can the cleaner complain to?
There's a manager, there's a line manager that the cleaner can complain to.
Yeah.
There's even a court manager.
Are you aware of the complaint center that has been set up in the OCJ, or have we not communicated enough against the judges by even members of the public?
Yes, I'm aware of it, Chief Justice.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other? Yes, Commissioner Malema.
No, Chief Justice, I think we must canvass this thing properly. In the judiciary, there is a process which you know and the Chief Justice outlines, including the complaining channels by ordinary people. But in this case, a public representative, like members of parliament, members of legislature, councillors, is there an outlined way to launch a complaint with such people?
Such a person can, and I repeat myself, raise it with the relevant people in authority in order to address the problem.
Judge, you see, the disadvantage of being a judge is that even if you are personally involved in a situation, you are required at all times to rise above and at all times be objective and give principled responses. It doesn't matter whether they make you stand a good chance of succeeding or not. I'm talking to you about the reality of the situation in our country where we've got a democratic system. People elect the representatives to go and represent them. What is the acceptable way of launching a complaint with such people? We're not talking about you now. Ordinary people. What is an acceptable way of raising a complaint with public representatives?
The person involved can approach his or her councillor or representative in order to address the problem or concern that he or she may have.
Or they can even lodge that complaint with a public representative. It so happened that they met at the Shell garage in a public toilet. And then they say to him, look, Mr. Malema, I work in this garage here. We're being violated here, our rights are being violated and all that. And that public representative can't say because it was in a public toilet, I can't take it. And I say to this person, you didn't follow some acceptable procedure and all that. All that I'm raising is, the public can raise any other issue with their public representatives at any time and anywhere. Am I correct?
You are correct, Commissioner.
And therefore, when their public representatives raise their concerns, the answer that says they didn't follow any acceptable procedure will not be entirely correct.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Just last, I know you tried to explain to us with regards to the objector, but there's an issue related to the perception of which Professor Ntlama raised about the perception of certain individuals about the Northwest High Court. And there's some of the things here which the objector even alleged that you threatened him personally, and some of the members who actually said, we will deal with you. Why would this objector go to the levels where he would even mention a number of people within the judiciary, some of whom who are actually members of staff in the court, as colluding somehow in making some members of society's life miserable?
Commissioner, I really don't know why the objector raised these allegations. I did not threaten him. I deny that I threatened the objector. I deny that there's any collusion with anybody against the objector.
Commissioner Mpofu?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm sorry you've made me to break my promise that I was not going to speak today and listen. But it's a subject close to my heart. I'm not quite sure that I understand your responses to the gender equality question. Maybe I should ask it in these simple terms. Do you see the 50-50 representation that is bandied about when we talk about numbers? Do you see it as a target or as a minimum?
I see it as perhaps an ideal situation, but it's not a target as such. we can move towards that, and I think equal representation is indeed the ideal.
No, sorry, maybe I was not clear. I'm saying there are two situations. One would be you have a target. In other words, you have a situation where you have 60 men and 40 women. Then you say, no, we want 50-50. Let's find 10 women. Then that's a target.
Yes.
But if you understand it as a minimum, then you will accept that there's nothing wrong, given the history, as the CJA was saying, in actually having 100 women. That's what Section 9.2 of the Constitution is all about, isn't it? That in our pursuit for equality, we have to take into account the historical
Disadvantage.
factors.
Yes, I agree.
You are excused, Judge Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice and Commissioners, for the opportunity. I thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time for deliberations, colleagues, if the room could be cleared.